Hi guys, and welcome back to Chat and Breeze. So here on my channel you're going to find everything in regards to starting your own clothing brand and the journey that I am currently on whilst doing so. You'll also see some little bits and pieces of my life and how I go about doing things, and a day in the life of, really, if you check my other vlogs out. So I am going to crack on today with, drum roll please, talking about building your brand and where to start, because I can tell you something. When I first started, I felt so overwhelmed. I watched so many different YouTube videos of people explaining like how they built their brands and what they did, and I kind of was starting to get so much information from different places, which was great, but then it became a little confusing sometimes and stuff. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to consolidate everything into one vlog for you guys, so you can take notes if you want, and just kind of like a stage by stage of the thought processes I had to go through to get to what I have now. So, and by the way, I am still learning. I'm still on my journey as well, but just these are the things that have really helped me and is a good foundation to start with. So let's get cracking. Yes, number one, very important. When you're looking at creating a brand, who are you creating it for? Who is your target audience? So there is no point in creating something which you say, oh, I don't have a target audience. So you're telling me that you could sell it to a 6-year-old and you could also sell it to an 8-year-old. Probably not going to happen, because they're in very different stages of life and what they require and what their wants and needs are going to be are very different, right? So you will have a target audience. You really need to hone down on this. So you need to look at your target audience and think, who is it that I'm making my items for? So for instance, for me, I have a t-shirt brand. So the t-shirt brand, because of the way I've created my t-shirts, they are purely going to be for women. And I am aging my target audience between the ages of 28 to 38. Now, the reason why this made sense for my brand is because when I'm looking at my price points of things, my price points are also going to be slightly higher. There's no point me selling my brand to a 20-year-old. I mean, 20-year-olds are more than welcome to purchase it, and I'm not saying that you're completely ruling that out, or I'm ruling anyone out who is above that age group, but I'm just saying the fit of my t-shirts are very kind of figure hugging. So sometimes people who are a bit older may not want to wear those kind of things as much. And also my price points are slightly higher because of the materials I'm using, because of the creation of the top. So I kind of was like homing in and going, okay, so I know that it's going to be for a women's market. This is kind of going to have to be my price point. This is what my tops are going to look like. This is where I see a hole in the market. This is obviously now my age group for all of those things put together. So that's how I'm looking at who my target audience was. So like I said, really think about if it's obviously for clothing, really think about who your clothing is targeting. Next one. So I've kind of incorporated this. So I've made notes just to make sure I'm not missing anything. So yeah, so you want to look at your age, your gender, and the style, which I've just incorporated in what I've just said. Who your competitors are. So sometimes it'll be very rare, it's not impossible, it's quite rare that you aren't going to have anyone who's in your lane. There are brands which do suddenly come out with something completely new, so like Spanx, or that, you know, came out with a new creation. But if you haven't come up with a completely new concept and you look on the market and you go, okay, well, actually what this person's designed is quite similar to what I'm designing. So their target audience probably is going to be very similar to mine. So then you need to look at, okay, well, what makes your brand stand out from your competitors? Is it your price point? So are you giving the same kind of style clothing, but your price point is a lot cheaper? That's your unique selling point, because yes, you've got your competitor, but hold on a second, you're undercutting kind of what they can serve. Or if your price point is higher, you might say, well, okay, my price point's higher, but my materials are better than what my competitors are. So really start looking at your competitors and really start looking at what makes your brand and the items that you have different to your competitors' brands. And as you start writing a list, you'll start to see common themes and stuff, and that will become your unique selling point. That is what you then need to target and push in front of your audience when it comes to advertising and marketing, you know, your garments. I'm not saying, you know, you don't want to be as blatant as like, use us because we are, you know, I don't know, half the price of these brands. You don't want to go into kind of a branding war, especially if you're looking at competitors who have a lot more money in the bank and can push things out a lot easier. But you do want to subtly say, okay, this is the reason why you should choose our brand instead. Right, so then I would say you need to think about how you want people to think about your brand, how you want people to recognize your brand. So if you have a look at a lot of strong, you know, clothing brands out there, or, you know, whatever it is that you're looking to get into really, but specifically clothing, you know, you want to have a look and you want to think like, okay, how do I know before I even see the garment name, what makes me know and associate, oh, that's such and such as garment? You want to kind of think like, what is it that people are going to recognize in my brand, that even if my brand name wasn't attached to it, whether it be the style of adverts that you create, the style of photos that you have, whether it's the way you shoot something differently that other brands don't shoot that way, whether it's colorings that you use, and you know, every picture that you have has certain colors in it. You want something which makes someone to attach straight. You want to create brand recognition without even having to explain what the brand is in regards to the name. So that's another thing that you need to think about. How you want people to feel when they see and hear about your brand. Bear with me on this one, because I think for a lot of us, e-commerce is the biggest way to be selling anything nowadays, all online. You don't need shop fronts, especially in this current climate. Obviously shop fronts are kind of dying out. I probably wouldn't suggest it would be the best idea straight to go to open a shop straight away. I would say sell online first and see what's going on in the market that way. So that being said, you need to think about, okay, when someone goes into a shop, so for instance, Abercrombie, and they had that certain smell when you went into Abercrombie and Fitch, they had their perfume smell in their shops, their colognes in their shops, and you went in and straight away, you could even smell it from outside. Hollister, obviously the sister and company of it, they did exactly the same, and then, you know, all the other marketing and branding that they did around it, which we won't even get into. But I'm just saying, like, when you went into the shop, it had a feel, it made you feel a certain way. Don't think that you can't get that from people coming to your site. You can absolutely still have someone have a feel about what your brand is about just from entering your website. So if you are, I don't know, for instance, all about women empowerment, then on your website, you want to have things which are associated with women empowerment. You want to have things which are going to make someone come onto your site and feel great once they've checked out your things, and whether it's slogans, whether it's images, whatever it is, however you want to do it, that's what you want to have people come away. So once they leave your website, they remember that feeling. It's like, for instance, when you're going into a shop and someone gives you amazing service, or if you speak to someone on the phone and it's a customer service and they give you amazing service, you remember that. You will tell your friends that. You will pass that information on. Why? Because you remember the way that they made you feel when you hung up the phone. Whether it good, whether it bad. And so you need to carry that on to your customer. You need to make sure that once they've left your website or whatever it is that you're creating, they have a feeling. And that feeling is good because that gets passed on to the next person and the next person who they tell. So really have a think about that and really think about how you can create that and how that fits in with obviously your branding. And messaging needs to be so clear, so clear. With the market saturated online, it is so easy. As soon as someone goes on your page, if they don't understand what your page is about, guess what? They're clicking off and they're going to the next. You do not have time any longer to have people come in and not understand what it is that you're selling, what it is that you represent, what it is that your brand is telling them. You just do not have the time to slowly, you know, release this information from people any longer. Everyone has such a short attention span. They need to hit your page and straight away they know what you're selling. Straight away they know this is targeted at me. Like straight away. Like if I'm 31 years old and I go and I'm someone who wants to have a t-shirt and I go to my personal t-shirt site, yep, this is for me. Straight away. You cannot lose customers over people being uncertain, and if you are able to explain to them, they'll be interested in your garment. We don't have the luxury of that. So that's an ongoing evolution, and it's very difficult, and this is something that I'm still trying. It's very difficult when you understand your brand inside out for people to come and have those fresh eyes, because you don't have the fresh eyes that other people have, right? Any longer, because you're so involved in your own branding. So you're just thinking, well, this is obvious, surely, but it may not be obvious to everyone else. Everyone else may not understand and get what it is that you're trying to say, what it is that you are representing. So I would always say, go and ask other people, can you have a look at my page? What is it that you see? What is it that you feel? What is it that I'm selling? What is it that you're buying into when you land on my pages? Whether that's on social media, whether that's your website, whatever it is. You really need to just keep asking and keep getting feedback. I know that people, friends and family, their heads are gonna be done in, I'm sure. But it's so vital because it's so easy to go off track and to go down a totally different avenue. You know, that people are reading it that way than what you intended to ever do. Have in your mind a summary of what your brand represents and who you are in 3 sentences. So you need to summarize everything in 3 sentences maximum. That if someone was to ask you, oh, you know, what is your brand? What is it that you do? In 3 sentences, you could reel that off maximum. Because remember, we don't have everyone's time, everyone's brains are everywhere else and thinking about everything else. You need to be able to straight away go, my brand is about, for instance, I don't know, women empowerment, it's about femininity, it's about all inclusion, and about my garments fitting every single woman and making them feel as sexy as possible. And I do that, and then you might say, you know, I sell dresses and I sell tops. You know, within that, I mean, that was probably like a really bad summary, but do you see what I'm saying? You're saying what you sell, you're saying, you're telling the people, like, this is how my brand is going to make you feel. All encompassing in like 3 seconds. That is what you need to get to. So get writing, because you're not going to get this straight away. You're not going to have, oh yeah, this is just it. Write it down, write down words, write down a whole long list of words of what your brand is, and then start, you know, start ruling them out. As you're writing sentences, start ticking off the words and going, okay, well, this one actually doesn't really summarize that much, because you're going to find you're going to throw a whole load of words on a piece of paper, and then as you start filtering through, you go, okay, well, that word may not encompass everything that I'm trying to say, so I can find a better word for that. Do you see what I mean? And it gets you then thinking, and it gets you really starting to create a strong summary of your brand. Lastly, I would say just remember, you know, what your brand represents. If you are somebody who is also, I don't know, really into ethical clothing, making sure that your clothing is done in an ethical way, etc., then make that known. Because that's probably your USP anyway, your unique selling point. You need to work through each of these bullet points, and everything, as you tick every single bullet point that I've gone through off, that is what your brand represents. And that is what your customer is going to think and feel and know when they come to you and when they've left. So I hope that this has helped. I know that there's a lot of information, but this is everything that I've had to learn, and I've gone on my journey learning as I've gone on, and I just feel like it's just about comprising everything together, which is hopefully what I've done. Anyway, any questions, do let me know. Otherwise, I will speak to you later. Bye.